Hey there, and welcome to today's daily premium newsletter for March 15th. So today was a big day for Bitcoin, even if the market hasn't reflected it. We saw the first official beta implementation of the Lightning Network that went live today as developer Lightning Labs announced it had won $2.5 million in funding, including backing from the Twitter CEO. The Lightning Network daemon, styled IND, which enables easy access to the Lightning Network for developers, represents the first mainnet beta release for the technology, which is tipped to revolutionize Bitcoin's use as a currency. So why is this important? Well, remember this graph? Even if you haven't seen it before, you probably knew the effects. Looking at the historical average transaction fee for Bitcoin, the average transaction fee was $55 per transaction on December 22nd, 2017. Yes, you heard that right. Now it's come down to about $1.50 since then, mostly due to the reduced load and really the transaction volume on the Bitcoin network. But still, if we were to go back to December levels of volume, Bitcoin would still be very expensive to transact again. Essentially, Bitcoin is old tech at this point, and making changes to a decentralized platform because you need to get the network to agree on them is harder and harder these days as the network has grown and miners have become more business oriented. If proposed changes hurt the miners' bottom line, they of course won't support it. So enter the Lightning Network, the solution that is meant to solve Bitcoin scalability issues. The importance of the Lightning Network should not be underestimated. This potential solution to Bitcoin's currently slow and expensive nature will change how cryptocurrency is transacted. With the Lightning Network, payments are virtually instantaneous and cost less than a penny. Of course, any proposed radical change is going to incite criticism and complaints that this abandons Satoshi's original vision for Bitcoin. Many of these alternative currency loyalists will argue against Lightning Network, critiquing the costly need to open channels or the possible susceptibility to centralization, for example. We'll continue to watch what happens as this gets closer to a tipping point of adoption, but needless to say, this is very exciting for the future of Bitcoin. The other piece of news we want to discuss is the recent raid on 3 cryptocurrency exchanges in South Korea. It's certainly apparent that cryptocurrency news on the Korean peninsula is frequent and often dramatic, but every time we've discussed developments in the recent months, it's always come down to looking worse than it actually is. For example, the Korean FUD that appeared right as the market turned in January was just re-reported news from December. It was media manipulation at its most flagrant. South Korea was simply looking to crack down on exchanges and ICOs that were violating standards and propping up the possibility of a black market. That is completely sensible, but the market acted in a completely nonsensical fashion, and almost 3 months later, we're still in a downturn. We see the news from today as more of the same. The 3 exchanges in question were not adhering to the guidelines that South Korean officials were now enforcing more stringently. In particular, the exchange's executives and staff are suspected of using fiat deposits from customer accounts to buy cryptocurrencies at other exchanges. No wonder they were raided. Needless to say, we believe this is just growing pains of an industry and a country looking to evolve a promising new market and asset class. We look forward to the future of cryptocurrency in South Korea. And so with that, over to Doc. See you this weekend.
Good evening, folks. It's Doc for ReadySetCrypto. One more time, I'm going to go over what I'm looking at here in Bitcoin. And we continue to see the price making lower highs, lower lows. We have a little bit of a doji candle here. And a doji candle means that it's setting up at about the same price that it opened up today. So we have about 2 hours left in the actual trading day as I cut this. And right now we have a doji on relatively decent volume. So you can see that this market, when it was going higher here, let's see if we can pull it over. When it was going higher here, we had relatively light volume on the rally, very light volume on the rally, and this just got faded. And you can see the volume increased on the move back down. This is where all these weak hands that bought in over here, or perhaps earlier, were selling out. So what we want to do, let's go over this one more time here. What we want to see from this market to really spark that disbelief rally that we're hoping for is I'd like to see an undercut of 6,000. So 6,000 was the previous low. The actual low was 5920.72, at least on Bitstamp. Now it could be different, could have been a different price on different exchanges that are out there. That's the one thing that people have to get used to, is that these markets are not arbitraged all that tightly just because of the time it takes to execute a transaction. So you can have different prices at different exchanges, but they should be fairly close. Once people figure out how to get these transactions sped up, then the arbitrage will be much better, the markets will be tighter, and they will be much more consistent across the board. So again, what we're looking for here, and this sounds draconian, but we almost need to make it really, really hard. We have to get it to the point where we have an undercut. I'd love to see an undercut of the February lows. The reason why I like undercuts is this induces panic. This is where people finally say, I give up. I can't do this anymore. It's undercutting the lows. Oh my gosh. Everything I put in, I put $10,000 in. Now it's only worth $3,000 and I want to save some value. So this is where the volume really picks up and people just go insane. And perhaps there were some stops that are sitting around here. People put stops below the recent lows. Maybe they bought in over here. They say, well, hold on as long as it doesn't undercut the low. And then all of a sudden those stops get wiped out. So this is where we have normally huge volume. We should get much bigger volume than this if we do see the undercut. Now, it doesn't have to happen. We could rally from here and pull up like this, but my sense is that it's just not ready yet. I mean, you've got to get almost this point where everybody gives up on the market and says, oh, this is done with, this is over with, crypto is never going to take off, and it will rally with nobody on board. I've seen it so many times where this happens, where you basically throw in the towel. It doesn't matter whether it's a stock, whether it's an option, a futures contract, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter because people become attached to the value that they buy it in for and get anchored on that price. And so they can't see past the panic. They can't see past all of the negative news that's out there. And this is where they wash out, never to return. Well, let me revise that. Never to return until the price starts making new highs again. And that's when they get off the couch and get interested one more time and the cycle repeats. Now, one thing I've been talking about lately is just swing trading, counter trend swing trading. Now, I'd love it for the price to be making higher highs and higher lows. So in other words, trading along with the current. So this is kind of like rowing downstream in your canoe. It's much easier than trying to paddle upstream. But as long as we're going down, then any kind of swing trades, especially if you're forced to trade from the long side, like 99% of people are in this market, then we're going to have to be smart about how we do this. So first of all, if you're going to trade to the long side from this, what you have to do is that descending patterns break to the upside. So wait for the swing, and it helps sometimes to have kind of a price go below the lower Bollinger Band, showing that it's come a little too far, a little too fast. Although you've seen that, we can see that several places along here, but it helps to not only kick this off with a visit below the band, but then break that trend line. And then this becomes our trigger to enter the trade at that point. So a combination of breaking below the lower Bollinger Band and then breaking the trend line in this case. Now, it's also really good if we have an exhaustion signal to the downside, in which case we did not here. Didn't have any exhaustion signals below 38.2 on the chop index. But here's your long entry. There's not a whole lot to yield from this because these become just little bear flag patterns that might pull up here just like this one was. This is a bear flag pattern that eventually broke to the downside. So we're going to continue to see this type of pattern here. Little bear flag pulls up, and then that's where you want to get out. That's when you want to get out of your position. So look for ways where you can trim the risk off on the opposite Bollinger Band and try to ride this up as long as you possibly can, putting your stop below all of the significant higher lows along the way. And then once it tips over again into a downtrend, you're out, and you're going to wait for the next descending pattern to break to the upside. Be patient, folks. We'll eventually get some movement here. This market has too much potential for it not to start attracting some of the trillions of dollars that are out there. Have a great weekend, folks. We'll see you with a weekend report. Take care.